Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. You know how much we love to dig into those fascinating corners of pop culture.
Absolutely.
And today, we're going to be exploring a topic that I think a lot of our listeners are going to have some pretty strong feelings about.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We're talking about anime spin-off series, specifically characters that fans, and maybe you listening right now, think absolutely deserve their own dedicated shows.
The fun one.
Oh, it is. And we've got this great rundown from Hype Senpai highlighting 7 characters who they believe are prime for spin-off treatment.
Yeah, this pasted text from Hype Senpai, I think, is a really cool snapshot of just raw fan enthusiasm. I mean, it's presented as like this top 7 list full of energy, and they're really speaking directly to like a super invested audience.
And can really feel it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the way they describe these like visual elements, like, energetic montages and character-specific imagery, it really underscores just how much viewers connect with these characters, on an emotional level. It really points to this hunger for more content, for getting deeper into these worlds we already love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit it on the head there. What we want to do today is really dig into why these characters connect so strongly. Like, what makes a character king of cool? And when you look at his fighting skills, his natural leadership, the weight of his past, it's easy to see why that label just totally sticks to him. What they specifically want to see is his earlier life in the underground, his relationships with Isabel and Farlon, and how he was ultimately recruited into the scout regiment.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, Levi, he's so central to Attack on Titan, but he still retains this kind of enigmatic quality.
There's still so much mystery there.
We've been given these really powerful glimpses into his past, but there are still significant chunks of his story that are untold. Like exploring his time in the underground, seeing those really intense bonds that he formed with Isabel and Farlon, especially in such a brutal environment, that could really give us a much deeper understanding of his character. It could, reveal those specific hardships that kind of forge this, almost stoic exterior that he has, and where that incredible resilience that he demonstrates throughout the series comes from. And then, seeing that pivotal moment of his recruitment into the scouts, like where his unique skills and his harsh experiences are all suddenly channeled into this larger fight for humanity. And that's a narrative with so much inherent dramatic potential.
Oh, absolutely.
It writes itself almost.
Moving on to number 2, and Hype Senpai practically bursts with excitement here. They say, you already know this was coming.
Yeah, can't say I'm surprised.
Not at all. It's Gojo Satoru from Jujutsu Kaisen, and they rightly identify him as the strongest sorcerer. The spin-off concept they propose is really focused on those formative years. His time at Jujutsu High, his evolving relationship with Geto, their missions as teenagers. The source even declares this potential spin-off legendary.
I think that really emphatic reaction really speaks to Gojo's just immense popularity. He's this overwhelmingly powerful figure in the show, almost untouchable. But those glimpses that we get of his youth, they suggest a much different dynamic, this kind of developing camaraderie with Geto that we know ultimately ends very tragically.
Right.
So a spin-off focusing on their time at Tokyo Jujutsu High. I mean, obviously it would be entertaining, seeing them as teenagers, seeing maybe a bit of their youthful arrogance.
Sure.
But it would also provide such crucial context for the main series. We'd witness those foundations of their bond and maybe even start to see some of the initial sparks of those ideological differences that eventually drive them apart.
Yeah.
It raises such a compelling question, like, how did these two incredibly gifted individuals, really end up shaping the jujitsu world that we see in the present storyline?
Right. And how much did that past really inform the present that we're watching now?
Exacto.
Okay, number 3 brings us to a character that Hype Senpai says is always ready for battle. And honestly, who isn't ready to see more Roronoa Zoro from One Piece?
Always a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah. Zoro's obviously a cornerstone of the Straw Hats crew, but as Hype Senpai points out, a lot of his past is still shrouded in mystery. The spin-off ideas that they throw out are his rigorous training under Mihawk, which I think we would all love to see his adventures as a solo bounty hunter before joining Luffy. And then the stories behind all of those legendary swords that he's mastered over his journey.
It's a lot of material.
Oh, it is. And Hype Senpai punctuates this with a fire emoji. So clearly a lot of people agree.
Yeah, well, Zoro's ambition is so unwavering, right?
Yeah.
And his absolute dedication to becoming the world's greatest swordsman is fundamental to who he is as a character. So a spin-off that really delves into the specifics of his training under Mihawk, the current holder of that title, that would be incredibly revealing. What kind of intense regimen did he have to endure to get to that point? What were those specific challenges that he faced, honing his skills to such a level? I mean, we see the end result, but understanding the process, I think that would be fascinating for so many fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, his time as a bounty hunter before meeting Luffy, that's largely unexplored territory. What kind of individuals did he encounter during that time? What shaped his fighting style? Maybe even his personal code of honor during that period. And then each of his swords, they carry their own history and significance. Exploring those origins, I mean, that could add another really rich layer to his ongoing narrative.
Definitely. All right, coming in at number 4, we have Itachi Uchiha from Naruto. Now, the source acknowledges that we have been shown some aspects of his backstory, but they very strongly argue that he deserves a whole series.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, the potential storylines they suggest, they cover his time as an ANBU operative. And just for anyone listening who might not be totally familiar with Naruto lore, that's like the covert ops assassination squad within the Hidden Leaf Village. We've also got his profound internal conflict, his really complex role as a spy for Konoha, and of course his deep love for his brother Sasuke. Hype Senpai goes so far as to say this could be the darkest and deepest side story within the entire Naruto universe.
Wow. Yeah, that description really gets to the core of Itachi's character.
Yeah.
He's this figure defined by immense tragedy and these incredibly difficult moral choices that he's had to make.
Yeah.
And while his backstory is obviously significant in the main Naruto narrative, I think a dedicated series could really dig into all the nuances of his experiences. Like his time in the ANBU carrying out these morally ambiguous missions for what he believes to be the greater good of his village. I mean, that offers a wealth of narrative possibilities. What were those specific assignments he had to undertake? How did those experiences change him? How did they force him to make such, devastating decisions? And the sheer weight of his internal struggle, the burden of his choices, the secrets he had to keep. That's something that you could explore with so much more depth. And then you've got his role as this double agent, constantly navigating this treacherous political landscape while also secretly protecting Sasuke from the shadows. That story is just brimming with drama and intrigue.
Yeah. Okay, at number 5, we have Shuda Aizawa, also known as Eraserhead from My Hero Academia.
Love Eraserhead.
Oh, he's such a great character. Hype Senpai makes the argument that he's the most underrated pro-hero, which I think a lot of people would agree with. The spin-off concepts that they suggest are really focused on his own hero training days, the formation of his friendships with Present Mike and the late Shirakumo, and then his earlier experiences doing these more clandestine underground hero missions.
Yeah, it's interesting because Eraserhead, he really operates outside of the conventional spotlight of hero society, right?
He does his own thing.
Exactly. His methods are often unorthodox, and he presents this really dry, almost cynical exterior. But underneath it all, he truly cares about his students. So, exploring his hero training days, I think it would give us a chance to see how he developed his quirk erasing abilities, how his fighting style came to be, and then his relationships with Present Mike and Shirakumo. Those are so crucial to understanding his past and kind of the origins of his slightly jaded outlook on the hero world.
Yeah.
And a series focusing on his underground hero work, those cases that don't make the headlines, the grittier side of hero society, that would offer such a different perspective on My Hero Academia as a whole. It would really appeal, I think, to fans who appreciate a more mature and nuanced take on the superhero genre.
All right, our 6th character here is Killua Zoldyck from Hunter x Hunter.
Okay.
Hype Senpai is practically in disbelief that this hasn't already happened.
Right.
They point out that being raised in a family of assassins, I mean, come on, that's inherently spin-off worthy.
Built-in drama.
Right. They even say, how is that not already a spin-off? Some of the potential content they highlight is, exploring his dark missions before meeting Gon, the intense family rivalries within the Zoldyck family, and all of his attempts to break free from, this path that was chosen for him. The source uses some pretty great language. They describe this as potentially chilling and epic.
I love that. And, the Zoldyck family is arguably one of the most fascinating and morally complex elements of Hunter x Hunter. Killua, being raised as this highly trained assassin, essentially forced into this dark and dangerous world from such a young age, that stands in such stark contrast to, his eventual desire for a normal life and this really genuine friendship that he finds with Gon. So a spinoff that goes into his earlier missions, it would be action-packed, of course, but it would also allow us to really unpack the psychological impact of his training and the moral dilemmas that he undoubtedly had to face, and then the internal power dynamics of the Zoldyck family, the intricate relationships that they all have with each other that offer so much narrative potential, and his eventual rebellion against his family's expectations and his desire for freedom. I mean, those are powerful themes that could be explored in such an impactful way in a dedicated series.
Absolutely. Okay, finally at number 7, we have Giyu Tomioka from Demon Slayer. Hype Senpai describes him as mysterious, powerful, and lonely. He holds that respected title of Water Hashira, and for anyone who might be a little less familiar with Demon Slayer, the Hashira, like the elite Demon Slayers, the top tier of the Demon Slayer Corps, the spin-off ideas here center on his past, how he achieved that Hashira status, his very significant relationship with Sabio, and then his solo missions battling demons. Hype Senpai believes this would be perfect for deeper lore.
I mean, Giyu is a character who, despite being very reserved, and even stoic, he carries a lot of emotional weight in Demon Slayer. His backstory, particularly his connection to Sabato and, the tragic circumstances surrounding Sabato's death and Giyu surviving, that's such a crucial part of his character arc. So a spin-off that explored that in detail, maybe showed their training together, the specific events that led to, that fateful encounter, and Giyu's survivor's guilt. I mean, that would add so much depth to his story. And then also seeing his journey to becoming the Water Hashira, the specific trials that he faced, how he developed his skills, that would be so interesting for fans. And given the, ever-present threat of demons in their world, a series focused on his solo missions could really showcase his strength, his unique perspective as a Hashira, and give us a very different look at that ongoing fight against the demonic forces.
So there you have it. 7 anime characters that Hype Senpai, and I think a lot of you listening probably agree, deserve their own spin-off series. It's really interesting to see these recurring ideas pop up in these suggestions. There's this clear desire to, delve into those backstories that we haven't seen before, to understand the motivations of these characters that we love, and to just uncover all those untold stories that exist within these already really well-developed anime universes.
And the enthusiasm that you see in that Hype Senpai piece, it really does reflect a broader sentiment in the anime community. People form these deep connections with these characters, and they want to spend more time with them in their worlds, witness their struggle.